Do. We are live. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I'm live too.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Right?
Oh my.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's my turn because I think you read last time because I was eating my delicious takeout.
The delicious takeout day. Yes.
Twas delicious.
It was beautiful.
It feels about 12 years ago now.
So long. For anyone joining us, I am not in my usual place. I am at my mom's place, our mom's place, because she needed some assistance and she made coffee cake. So I'm eating it.
That sounds lovely. Sandy made waffles this morning. They are shaped like Millennium Falcons, and they were delicious. That waffle maker was a great investment.
Jason is like superhuman because we have 8 people in our family. So when he makes waffles, we've got 2 double waffle makers, the kind you flip.
Mm-hmm.
So he lays them out so he can do 4 at a time. It's like watching a well-oiled machine.
Impressive.
Waffles.
Hmm?
And then eating waffles, which...
Those are 2 of my favorite things.
Yes.
All right. Where were we? We were meeting the elves. Right?
Yes, absolutely. If you go with us, it'll shorten your road tomorrow. But the hobbits hadn't yet begun stumbling with weariness. So they're about to.
Okay. So were we at Ellen Silalumen Omentielvo? Is that about where we were at?
No secrets.
Ah, yes. Speak no secrets. Here's the scholar in the ancient tongue. Let's see. Come now with your friends and join our company. You had best walk in the middle so that you may not stray. You may be weary before we halt. Why? Where are you going? Asked Frodo. For tonight we go to the woods on the hills above Woodhall. It is some miles, but you shall have rest at the end of it, and it will shorten your journey tomorrow. They now marched on again in silence, and passed like shadows in faint lights. For elves, even more than hobbits, could walk when they wished without sound or footfall. Pippin soon began to feel sleepy, and staggered once or twice. But each time a tall elf at his side put out his arm and saved him from a fall. Sam walked along at Frodo's side, as if in a dream, with an expression on his face half of fear and half of astonished joy. This is reminding me of something that I need to find real quick before we continue, because I remember saying I have to read this to Robin tonight. First, I have to find it. One moment.
You're seeing it first here. This is strontium.
Ooh, neat.
Right? He's an alkali earth metal, so he's a goblin. And strontium has a really shitty reputation because it's one of the fallout chemicals, but only one of its isotopes is radioactive. The others are perfectly harmless, and the body tends to confuse it for calcium.
And how many of us truly can say that only one of our isotopes are radioactive?
Right, it's true. But because the radioactive isotope is such a major feature of fallout, when you hear strontium, people are like, ooh. His metaphysical handle is confusion. For that. So what are you showing me?
Well, I'm trying to find it, and it might take me longer than I would like, so I may have to find it and queue it up for next time, unless I saved it. Was I that smart?
Ooh, I hope so.
Let's find out.
Let's do.
I did! Look at me! Good job, past self. Good job. All right, here we go. My worst Lord of the Rings take is also my worst Moomin take. And it's that hobbits and Moomins are actually the same creature. Evidence. Hobbits are nowhere described as being more humanoid than the marshmallow hippo cow creatures. Both chill groups of creatures who live in rural environs and place a lot of value on steady, comfortable living. Excepting the occasional member, Bilbo, Moomin Papa, who choose to adventure when they're young. There's only one piece of canon evidence which contradicts my theory, which is hobbits are described as wearing clothes, which I can happily put to rest with my worst take of all time. Moomin Valley is a hobbit nudist colony.
Furry feet. Women don't have furry feet.
Are we sure they don't?
They have fuzzy feet. We could. It could be a mistranslation. Oh my God, Tolkien was completely inspired by the Kalevala, which is Finnish. Where do Moomins come from? Finland, for those of you who are
Yes.
that sentence.
Yeah, right. I didn't even think to say it because I was just like, oh my God, of course. So yeah, so hobbits are Moomins.
Hobbits are Moomins. Someone mistranslated something at some point to say hairy instead of fuzzy.
Which then leads me to my other favorite thing about this, which is the folk of Gondor look at hobbits and see children. Therefore, Aragorn is a Scandinavian hippo cow troll thing, as were the kings of old, as are Gandalf and his order, QED. Which then leads to beefy uber Moomin Boromir snowplowing proudly through Caradhras. I can do this because I'm doughy. Aragorn. Doty. Boromir. Yeah, too.
Yeah. My screen cannot decide what levels the light is levels the light is in this room. I keep going dim. In the Moomin books and in the comics, no one seems to notice that everyone's a slightly different species. So it follows that the Filionks and the Gaffsies and the Wompers and the Mimbles all have Middle-earth counterparts, which might be why elves look different from the men of Gondor, because the men of Gondor are Moomins and the elves are Mimbles.
I was thinking Mimbles.
Mimbles are elegant. They're put together.
Mm-hmm.
They tend not to feel remorse. In fact, they're completely incapable of feeling remorse.
So they're also sociopaths. Good to know.
Little bit, yeah. They can feel anger and they can feel happy.
Yep, sounds like sociopaths.
But they're just extremely suave creatures. Beautiful hair.
It's all coming together.
Yeah, it really is. Elves are Mimbles, people. You heard it
and
here.
And hobbits are Moomins. And men are very large Moomins.
Oh, Hemulins. Hemulins look like large Moomins. They're sort of hippo-like, but they're bigger and louder.
Yeah. Yep. Good.
Men of Gondor are Hemulins.
All right, now that we've established that, let's join our Moomin and Mimble friends on the road to Woodhall.
Who the heck are orcs?
That I don't know.
Right? Two Ticky's a wizard.
Good.
She wears a hat.
Well, then, obviously.
And she knows things and she never gives a straight answer. You go ahead and read now.
Keep me posted as this theory is built out. The woods on either side became denser, and the trees were now younger and thicker. And as the lane went lower, running down into a fold of the hills, there were many deep breaks of hazel on the rising slopes at either hand. At last the elves turned aside from the path. A green ride lay almost unseen through the thickets on the right, and this they followed as it wound away back up the wooded slopes onto the top of a shoulder of the hills that stood out into the lower land of the river valley. Suddenly they came out of the shadow of the trees, and before them lay a wide space of grass, gray under the night. On three sides the woods pressed upon it, but eastward the ground fell steeply, and the tops of the dark trees growing at the bottom of the slope were below their feet. Beyond, the lowland lay dim and flat under the stars. Nearer at hand, a few lights twinkled in the village of Woodhall. The elves sat on the grass and spoke together in soft voices. They seemed to take no further notice of the hobbits. Frodo and his companions wrapped themselves in cloaks and blankets, and drowsiness stole over them. The night grew on, and the lights in the valley went out. Pippin fell asleep, pillowed on a green hillock. Away high in the east swung Remarath. That's not easy to say. The netted stars, and slowly above the mists red Borgil rose, glowing like a jewel of fire. Then by some shift of airs, all the mist was drawn away like a veil, and there leaned up, as he climbed over the rim of the world, the swordsman of the sky, Menelvagor, with his shining belt. The elves all burst into song. Suddenly under the trees, a fire sprang up with a red light.
I really love how it feels like they're all connected, even though if you had been there, like the rising of Orion did not cause people to just burst into song. That's not how stars work, but this is so.
Well, maybe not people, but elves.
Sure. Yeah, but you wouldn't draw that connection, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
If you
yeah,
were
I
present.
suppose not.
It's kind of subtle. A constellation rising is a very subtle, slow, not exactly a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, go.
Hey guys, it's me, Orion.
You start singing. You build a fire. Whoa!
Fair. But that's how I'm going to picture the rising of Orion now. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Do, do, do. Suddenly under the trees, a fire sprang up with a red light. Come, the elves called to the hobbits. Come, now is the time for speech and merriment. Pippin sat up and rubbed his eyes. He shivered. There is a fire in the hall, and food for hungry guests, said an elf standing before him. At the south end of the greensward there was an opening. There the green floor ran on into the wood and formed a wide space like a hall roofed by the boughs of trees. Their great trunks ran like pillars down each side. In the middle there was a wood fire blazing, and upon the tree pillars torches with lights of gold and silver were burning steadily. The elves sat round the fire upon the grass, or upon the sawn rings of old trunks. Some went to and fro bearing cups and pouring drink. Others brought food on heaped plates and dishes. This is poor fare, they said to the hobbits, for we are lodging in the greenwood far from our halls. If you are ever our guests at home, we will treat you better. It seems to me good enough for a birthday party, said Frodo. Pippin afterwards recalled little of either food or drink, for his mind was filled with the light upon the elf faces and the sound of voices so various and so beautiful that he felt in a waking dream. But he remembered that there was bread, surpassing the savor of a fair white loaf to one who is starving, and fruits sweet as wild berries and richer than the tended fruits of gardens. He drained a cup that was filled with a fragrant draught, cool as a clear fountain, golden as a summer afternoon. Sam could never describe in words nor picture clearly to himself what he felt or thought that night, though it remained in his memory as one of the chief events of his life, which is really saying something considering what's going to happen in the rest of his life.
I have to imagine that it's one of the chief events because it is sort of a launching point for everything that comes afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so very simple and wholesome, but it's his first experience of the magic. So
yeah, it makes sense psychologically. I just think it's funny.
Right. Oh yeah, we did this. We did save the world. We did destroy. Oh, I did kind of, sort of battle a spider, and but chief events. Yeah, no, I'd have to say the picnic.
I mean, I personally, and this may sound weirder than I mean it, I had a peach one time that really changed my life, so I kind of get where he's coming from.
You heard the Ian Peach story?
Yes.
The Ian Peach, ninth grade.
Yes. No, the peach did not turn me gay. It is not a metaphor. It was an actual piece of fruit. It was very ripe and delicious and highly memorable.
Okay.
And also like last year, so definitely not what turned me gay.
All right, I'm
All right.
muted again.
Chief events of his life. Do. The nearest he ever got was to say, "Well, sir, if I could grow apples like that, I'd call myself a gardener." But it was the singing that went to my heart, if you know what I mean. Frodo sat eating, drinking, and talking with delight, but his mind was chiefly on the words spoken. He knew a little of the elf speech and listened eagerly. Now and again he spoke to those that served him and thanked them in their own language. They smiled at him and said, laughing, "Here is a jewel among hobbits." After a while Pippin fell fast asleep, and was lifted up and borne away to a bower under the trees. There he was laid upon a soft bed and slept the rest of the night away. Sam refused to leave his master. When Pippin had gone, he came and sat curled up at Frodo's feet, where at last he nodded and closed his eyes. Frodo remained long awake, talking with Gildor. They spoke of many things, old and new, and Frodo questioned Gildor much about happenings in the wide world outside the Shire. The tidings were mostly sad and ominous. Mood. Of gathering darkness, the wars of men, and the flight of the elves. At last Frodo asked the question that was nearest to his heart. "Tell me, Gildor, have you ever seen Bilbo since he left us?" Gildor smiled. "Yes," he answered, "twice. He said farewell to us on this very spot, but I saw him once again, far from here." He would say no more about Bilbo, and Frodo fell silent.
Which is a bit of a bitch move, frankly.
Right, like just say he's living in Rivendell. Like what?
Maybe Bilbo, this is what happened. Bilbo gathered up the elves one day, like 2 or 3 years ago, and he said, "Whatever you do, don't tell Frodo where I am, because at some point he'll come out here, and then I'm going to surprise him." And everybody respected Bilbo, so they were like, "Okay."
That would be an incredibly Bilbo thing to do.
Yeah.
Yep, that checks out.
Right. New headcanon.
"You do not ask me or tell me much that concerns yourself, Frodo," said Gildor. "But I already know a little, and I can read more in your face and in the thought behind your questions. You are leaving the Shire, and yet you doubt that you will find what you seek, or accomplish what you intend, or that you will ever return. Is not that so?" "It is," said Frodo, "but I thought my going was a secret known only to Gandalf and my faithful Sam." He looked down at Sam, who was snoring gently. "The secret will not reach the enemy from us," said Gildor. "The enemy?" said Frodo. "Then you know why I am leaving the Shire?" "I do not know for what reason the enemy is pursuing you," answered Gildor, "but I perceive that he is. Strange indeed, though that seems to me. Why does everybody neg hobbits all the time?"
Right?
And
it's not like you have any wisdom or strength or grace or beauty or any virtues whatsoever.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to me like there's any reason why anyone would want you, but I guess he does. "And I warn you that peril is now both before you and behind you, and upon either side." Just like all around, really. Just in a general sort of everywhere direction.
That's what this gesture means now. Peril is before you and behind you and upon either side.
The Pope will be surprised to hear it.
The Pope will have been compared to Gildor, and he'll take it as a compliment.
This one actually might. Let's see. Do. You mean the riders? I feared that they were servants of the enemy. What are the Black Riders? Has Gandalf told you nothing? Nothing about such creatures? Not. Yep. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Then I think it is not for me to say more, lest terror should keep you from your journey. This is some horror movie shit right here.
Little hobbit.
What was that?
You'll just wet your pants, you little hobbit.
Well, that and also like I'm going to keep you safe by not telling you what's threatening you.
Where do you go with Spider-Man?
I was gonna say sex ed.
Much more applicable, yes.
We all know that abstinence-only sex ed is extremely effective. Oh, wait, no. The opposite of that.
Yeah, it's effective at making babies.
Alas.
Mm-hmm.
For it seems to me that you have set out only just in time, if indeed you are in time. He's not wrong about that.
It's true, but it's hilarious how many times they hear, God, you set out just in the nick of, or maybe not, maybe you missed the nick. The nick is gone. If you were looking for the opportune moment, last April.
That was it. Yeah, right? Also kind of a mood. Let's see. You must now make haste and neither stay nor turn back, for the Shire is no longer any protection to you. I cannot imagine what information could be more terrifying than your hints and warnings, exclaimed Frodo. Yeah, fair. I knew that danger lay ahead, of course, but I did not expect to meet it in our own Shire. Can't a hobbit walk from the water to the river in peace? But it is not your own Shire, said Gildor. Others dwelt here before hobbits were, and others will dwell here again when hobbits are no more. Yeah, colonizer. The wide world is all about you. You can fence yourselves in, but you cannot forever fence it out. I know, and yet it has always seemed so safe and familiar. What can I do now? My plan was to leave the Shire secretly and make my way to Rivendell, but now my footsteps are dogged before ever I get to Buckland. I think you should still follow that plan, said Gildor. I do not think the road will prove too hard for your courage. But if you desire clearer counsel, you should ask Gandalf. I do not know the reason for your flight, and therefore I do not know by what means your pursuers will assail you. These things Gandalf must know. I suppose that you will see him before you leave the Shire? I hope so, but that is another thing that makes me anxious. I have been expecting Gandalf these many days. He was to have come to Hobbiton at the latest 2 nights ago, but he has never appeared. Now I am wondering what can have happened. Should I wait for him? Gildor was silent for a moment. I do not like this news, he said at last. That Gandalf should be late does not bode well. But it is said, do not meddle in the affairs of wizards, for they are subtle and quick to anger.
In a Dave Barry column that makes me laugh every time I hear the phrase now, one of the questions, it's Ask Mr. Language Person, and one of the questions is, what does someone mean when they say something does not bode well? And the answer is that it isn't boding as well as it should. It could bode better.
Oh, I like that. And instead of saying it doesn't bode well, you can just be like, well, that could bode better.
Bode better.
I also always like mix up this phrase and do not meddle in the affairs of wizards, for you are crunchy and taste good with ketchup.
No, that's not wizards, darling.
Are we sure?
Commerce.
Let's see. The choice is yours, to go or wait. And it is also said, answered Frodo, go not to the elves for counsel, for they will say both no and yes.
Bitch to get consent out of those guys. Why they breed so rarely.
It explains so much.
Right? Freaking Mimbles.
Is it indeed? Laughed Gildor. Elves seldom give unguarded advice, for advice is a dangerous gift, even from the wise to the wise, and all courses may run ill. But what would you? You have not told me all concerning yourself, and how then shall I choose better than you? But if you demand advice, I will, for friendship's sake, give it. I think you should now go at once without delay, and if Gandalf does not come before you set out, then I also advise this: do not go alone. Take such friends as are trusty and willing. Now you should be grateful, for I do not give this counsel gladly. The elves have their own labors and their own sorrows, and they are little concerned with the ways of hobbits or of any other creatures upon earth. Our paths cross theirs seldom by chance or purpose. In this meeting there may be more than chance, but the purpose is not clear to me, and I fear to say too much. I am deeply grateful, said Frodo, but I wish you would tell me plainly what the Black Riders are. If I take your advice, I may not see Gandalf for a long while, and I ought to know what is the danger that pursues me. Is it not enough to know that they are servants of the enemy? Answered Gildor. Flee them. Speak no words to them. They are deadly. Ask no more of me. But my heart forebodes that, ere all is ended, you, Frodo, son of Drogo, will know more of these fell things than Gildor and Glorian. May Elbereth protect you. But where shall I find courage? Asked Frodo. That is what I chiefly need. Courage is found in unlikely places, said Gildor. You can find it in the bed and bath aisle at Walmart.
It's what's in Beyond at Bed Bath and Beyond. The Bed Bath and Courage sounded wrong.
Be of good hope. Sleep now. In the morning we shall have gone, but we will send our messages through the lands. The wandering companies shall know of your journey, and those that have power for good shall be on the watch. I name you Elf Friend, and may the stars shine upon the end of your road. Seldom have we had such delight in strangers, and it is fair to hear words of the ancient speech from the lips of other wanderers in the world. This is why you should always try to talk to people in their language if you can.
Right? They invite you to midnight picnics of awesomeness.
And they offer to shelter you from evil.
Right?
Either that or it's just polite. Take your pick. Frodo felt sleep coming upon him, even as Gildor finished speaking. I will sleep now, he said, and the elf led him to a bower beside Pippin, and he threw himself upon a bed and fell at once into a dreamless slumber.
I like that he threw himself. He doesn't just lay down. He goes, fling!
Is that not how you get into bed?
Whee!
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, there's two methods of getting into bed. There is and
yeah, flump.
All right.
Or you're getting into bed in the dark because the other person is already asleep, and so you shuffle forward until your shins hit the bar. Flump.
Sure. I mean, it's been many a day since I had that problem, but I vaguely recall.
Lost in the mists of time. This is indium. I'll get her foot fixed up when I do the painting. But
Nice.
it's a very bendy metal.
I suspected that to be the case.
And she's super bored. Does she look bored or does she just look dead?
I can't tell over the camera. Move the face part a little closer. It's really hard to tell. Yeah.
Her proportions are a bit off. I'll fix it in the final. That's always my answer. My sketch is crap. I'll fix it later.
Checks out. Chapter 4?
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. A shortcut to mushrooms.
Mushrooms!
In the morning, Frodo woke refreshed. He was lying in a bower made by a living tree with branches laced and drooping to the ground. His bed was of fern and grass, deep and soft and strangely fragrant. The sun was shining through the fluttering leaves, which were still green upon the tree. He jumped up and went out. Sam was sitting on the grass near the edge of the wood. Pippin was standing, studying the sky and weather. There was no sign of the elves. "They have left us fruit and drink and bread," said Pippin. "Come and have your breakfast. The bread tastes almost as good as it did last night. I did not want to leave you any, but Sam insisted." Frodo sat down beside Sam and began to eat. "What is the plan for today?" asked Pippin. "To walk to Bucklebury as quickly as possible," answered Frodo, and gave his attention to the food. Frodo's kind of like me in the morning. He's like, "Don't talk to me." "Do you think we shall see anything of those riders?" asked Pippin cheerfully. Under the morning sun, the prospect of seeing a whole troop of them did not seem very alarming to him. "Yes, probably," said Frodo, not liking the reminder, "but I hope to get across the river without their seeing us." "Did you find out anything about them from Gildor?" "Not much. Only hints and riddles," said Frodo evasively. "Did you ask about the sniffing?" "We didn't discuss it," said Frodo with his mouth full. "You should have. I'm sure it's very important." "In that case, I'm sure Gildor would have refused to explain it," said Frodo sharply. "And now leave me in peace for a bit. I don't want to answer a string of questions while I'm eating. I want to think." "Good heavens!" said Pippin. "At breakfast?" He walked away towards the edge of the green. From Frodo's mind, the bright morning, treacherously bright, he thought, had not banished the fear of pursuit, and he pondered the words of Gildor. The merry voice of Pippin came to him. He was running on the green turf and singing. "No, I could not," he said to himself. "It is one thing to take my young friends out walking over the Shire with me, until we are hungry and weary, and food and bed are sweet. To take them into exile, where hunger and weariness may have no cure, is quite another, even if they are willing to come. The inheritance is mine alone. I don't think I ought even to take Sam." He looked at Sam Gamgee and discovered that Sam was watching him. "Well, Sam," he said, "what about it? I'm leaving the Shire as soon as ever I can. In fact, I have made up my mind now not to wait even a day at Crick Hollow if it can be helped." "Very good, sir." "You still mean to come with me?" "I do." "It is going to be very dangerous, Sam. It is already dangerous. Most likely neither of us will come back." "If you don't come back, sir, then I shan't, that's certain," said Sam. "Don't you leave him," they said to me. "Leave him," I said. "I never mean to." I'm losing Sam's accent badly here, but it's fine. "I'm going with him if he climbs to the moon. And if any of those Black Riders try to stop him, they'll have Sam Gamgee to reckon with," I said. They laughed. "Who are they, and what are you talking about?" "The elves, sir. We had some talk last night. They seemed to know you were going away, so I didn't see the use of denying it. Wonderful folk, elves, sir. Wonderful." "They are," said Frodo. "Do you like them still, now that you have had a closer view?" "They seem a bit above my likes and dislikes, so to speak," answered Sam slowly. "It don't seem to matter what I think about them. They are quite different from what I expected. So old and young, and so gay and sad, as it were." Frodo looked at Sam rather startled, half expecting to see some outward sign of the odd change that seemed to have come over him. It did not sound like the voice of the old Sam Gamgee that he thought he knew. But it looked like the old Sam Gamgee sitting there, except that his face was unusually thoughtful. "Do you feel any need to leave the Shire now that your wish to see them has come true already?" he asked. "Yes, sir. I don't know how to say it, but after last night I feel different. I seem to see ahead, in a kind of way. I know we are going to take a very long road into darkness, but I know I can't turn back. It isn't to see elves now, nor dragons, nor mountains that I want. I don't rightly know what I want. But I have something to do before the end, and it lies ahead, not in the Shire. I must see it through, sir, if you understand me." "I don't altogether. But I understand that Gandalf chose me a good companion. I am content. We will go together." Frodo finished his breakfast in silence. Then, standing up, he looked over the land ahead and called to Pippin. "All ready to start?" he said as Pippin ran up. "We must be getting off at once. We slept late, and there are a good many miles to go." You slept late, you mean, said Pippin. I was up long before, and we are only waiting for you to finish eating and thinking. Yeah, I can't switch back and forth between Pippin and Sam's accents, or I lose both.
Pick one and just do that. Incidentally, my tablet has said that it's low on battery, so if I vanish, that's not by choice.
Word. Well, why don't I read to the end of this section, and then maybe we can call it a short one tonight if your thing's about to die.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't want to miss anything. This is from
Exactly.
me. We all know this. It's for my benefit.
Well, yeah, I'm not just going to sit here and read into the void. That'd be silly. I have finished both now, and I am going to make for Buckleberry Ferry as quickly as possible. I am not going out of the way back to the road we left last night. I'm going to cut straight across country from here. Then you're going to fly, said Pippin. You won't cut straight on foot anywhere in this country. We can cut straighter than the road, anyway, answered Frodo. The ferry is east from Woodhall, but the hard road curves away to the left. You can see a bend of it away north over there. It goes round the north end of the Marish so as to strike the causeway from the bridge above Stock. But that is miles out of the way. We could save a quarter of the distance if we made a line for the ferry from where we stand. Shortcuts make long delays, argued Pippin. The country is rough round here, and there are bogs and all kinds of difficulties down in the Marish. I know the land in these parts. And if you are worrying about black riders, I can't see that it is any worse meeting them on a road than in a wood or a field. It is less easy to find people in the woods and fields, answered Frodo. And if you are supposed to be on the road, there is some chance that you will be looked for on the road and not off it. All right, said Pippin. I will follow you into every bog and ditch. But it is hard, and I had counted on passing the Golden Perch at Stock before sundown. The best beer in the East Farthing, or used to be. It is a long time since I tasted it. That settles it, said Frodo. Shortcuts make delays, but inns make longer ones. At all costs, we must keep you away from the Golden Perch. We want to get to Bucklebury before dark. What do you say, Sam? I'll go along with you, Mr. Frodo, said Sam, in spite of private misgiving and a deep regret for the best beer in the East Farthing. Then if we are going to toil through bog and briar, let's go now, said Pippin. And I have lost Robin, so I will say good night to everyone else, and I'll see you guys soon.